Hey friends, Ash here. Welcome back to Gents. Hope that you're doing well. Today we've got the follow-up that we've been waiting for years. Did Tony Soprano actually die? Oh, different Soprano. Oh no, this is Soprano Ice from Dumont, Paris. Technically it says Panucci on the box, but yeah, it's Dumont. It says that as well. So Soprano Ice is a new release from Dumont. Dumont, of course, probably most well known for Nitro Red, which is a super popular complement pulling synth that's kind of similar to Invictus/Invictus Aqua with a little smidge of BR540 for good measure. Question is this one able to compete with that one? Can it dethrone the biggest of them all? It's not how English works. Look at that. So this one I picked up from the perfume box, $39.99 is that price point. Just a smidge under 40 bucks, but you can make it a smidge more under 40 if you use this code right here, which you can use anytime you shop at the perfume box. Let's go ahead and get started by taking a look at the presentation, guys, then we can start talking about this scent and if it's good or not, or if it sucks. Complete balls. So here we have the front of the box. You have the name of the house, name of the fragrance, size and concentration, 100 ml eau de parfum. You have Panucci on top of the box. On the back, you have your sticker of authenticity. And then you have some cursive. Let's see if I can read this. A resounding harmony of the most, what the f? Light. Okay, here we go. I can hold it in the light and I can read it. A resounding harmony of the most scentful elements in nature that sways every mood and emotion, leaping forward and escaping the cocktail of fragrances, thereby making itself known with precision and yet remains the crucial part of an overall impression, the soprano. What does that even mean? What? Did you run that through Google Translate? On the bottom, you have the ingredients. You have the batch code. And my friends, this is what we like to call a box within a box, boxception. Once again, look at the front, look at the top, look at the back. It's like we've seen this before. Again, boxception. Opens like this. You have a little silica gel packet, don't eat this, and a cutout where your bottle will sit inside. And here is said bottle. It has a nice kind of frosted glass aesthetic to it. It says Soprano Ice on the front. You got the logo on top of the cap. You have a sticker on the bottom, also your badge code printed in ink. And that cap does click quite snugly into place. Look at that, it's not coming off. You know what time it is. It's time to do a couple sprays. Let's do it. Powerful, immense power. So let's talk Soprano Ice. The smell, is it good? Is it worth 40 bucks or 36 if you use the code? I got it, my gumad. I got it, my gabagool. I gotta go to the bada big and get the gabagool. Anybody out there watch Sopranos back in the day or like recently? So how does it open? It opens with this fizzy, brisk sweetness that hits you right away. Think cold ginger ale poured over ice with a flash of bubblegum and a little twist of citrus over top for good measure. That's kind of how it hits when you first spray this one on. The ginger is vibrant, it's effervescent, it grabs your attention immediately when you spray this on. You also have a crisp apple kind of in the background initially that works up a little bit as the fragrance starts to dry down in the opening. So it comes across very much as a sweet blue fragrance when you first spray it on. Brisk, icy, fresh, but at the same time, a sweet blue scent, which makes sense when you look at the, the bottle and everything, the color scheme, the note breakdown. And talking about that ice, that freshness, that briskness, there is this almost like minty kind of pop in the opening when you spray it on as well. So a little bit green, but not in a way that's gonna come across herbal or anything like that. Just more a minty, sweet pop that goes along with all those other notes as well. It is absolutely in the style of Why by Yves Saint Laurent. So if you're familiar with that line of fragrances, even one of them, then when you spray this on, you're gonna be like, oh, okay, yeah, it's a Y type scent profile. And actually, when you look at the note breakdown, it's really, really similar to this Y Le Parfum, the original Y Le Parfum, not the new Y Le Parfum. So a lot of similarities if you look at these two note breakdowns side by side between the scents. So you would probably think, okay, well, Soprano Ice then is just Y Le Parfum, most likely. But it's really not. It's not a one-to-one of Y Le Parfum. On tester strips, maybe they're a little bit closer. If you side by side on skin with both of these at the same time, there are a lot of differences. Actually, I haven't even tester stripped these side by side, so let's do that. Yeah, I mean, off a strip. A little bit closer. Not as much upscale. So Soprano Ice, it opens up clean, modern, attention-grabbing, a little bit fizzy, playful, and extremely easy to like, assuming that you like the Y line of fragrances. If you hate them, actually, maybe not as much. As Soprano Ice starts to head into the mid, you get a little faint waft of incense that starts to kind of creep its way forward. So it's not really strong. It's, as I said, definitely faint as you work through the mid, but it starts to be more noticeable. So it gives you this little hint of smokiness that contrasts really nicely with all of that fruit and all of that sweetness that you get when you first spray this on. It starts to give you a counterpoint. As it heads longer through the mid, that fizziness from the opening, it starts to die down a little bit. You get this touch of creaminess that starts to come out as well, but you still do have this nice airy freshness, this kind of ozonic feeling in the mid that carries over from the opening. So it still is very much a fresh scent, but you also have these other notes that are starting to come out and kind of blend together. So again, that kind of creamy feel, a little bit of vanilla in there, the apple, you can still pick that up also, and a little touch of sandalwood. The longer that it stays on, it's just kind of underneath everything, like a base layer for the other notes to play off of. It keeps that Y DNA, that blue fragrance DNA front and center as well through the mid, because of lavender and geranium. Those two notes mixing together in a way, again, that's gonna be very familiar to you if you are familiar with the Y scents. And I have to say that to me, this one does have a little more in common in terms of the scent with Y Elixir. So let's go ahead and blast this on awful atomizer. Off tester strips, it may not be quite as close, but off skin, side by side, Soprano Ice a little more in common with Y Elixir than Y Le Parfum through the opening and the mid. The reason that it's a little bit more similar to me anyway, to Y Elixir, is the way this comes across is more fresh, brisk, sweet, in a fruity type of way, whereas Y Le Parfum is gonna come across a little bit heavier, a little bit deeper, more tonka driven, more of like an evening type of scent profile, like taking the Y DNA and making it a little bit more for evening use, potentially like fall use. That's kind of what's going on here. Whereas Soprano Ice is keeping it more spring, summer, more fizzy, and Y Elixir has a little bit more of that going on. Now, if you look at the note breakdown, Y Elixir's note breakdown is like 4 notes, and it does share those notes, I believe, maybe all of the notes actually with Soprano Ice. I know no, not the oud. It doesn't share the oud, but it shares the geranium, the lavender, and the incense. But Y Elixir, when you spray that on, is definitely more on the fresh side compared to Y Le Parfum. It has that sort of fizziness, it has that sweetened up lavender geranium combo, and so it shares those similarities with Soprano Ice. Now that being said, it is not a one-to-one. Soprano Ice does not smell like a one-to-one of Y Elixir. It also doesn't smell like a one-to-one of Y Le Parfum. You could more so think of this one, Soprano Ice, as a long-lost flanker in the Y line. It's honestly the best way to think of it, because to you, it could very well remind you more of Y Eau de Toilette, or Y Eau de Parfum, or Y Le Parfum, or Y Elixir, or Y Eau de Parfum Intense, okay? It could remind you more of one of those. To me, it reminds me more of this one, but I think it's just the Y line kind of runs together. Like there are a lot of aspects shared between the fragrances. And so you could focus in on one part of this fragrance and it could make you think, more like that one. Somebody else could focus in more on something else and be like, no, more like that one. So I think the best way to think of it is just like that, essentially like it's a Y flanker that's not officially a Y flanker. It's clearly in the family, but it's also kind of doing its own thing. It's like they all live in the same house, but they have different rooms, right? So they're all cohabitating, but maybe they're doing their own thing in their own room. Now in the dry down, Soprano Ice changes up a pretty good amount, a surprising amount actually, because when this first hits you, it is gonna be sweet, it's gonna be fresh, it's gonna have that fruit, all that fizziness, everything I talked about, and it's gonna hit you like, oh man, sick, just a killer summertime fragrance as long as you don't mind that sweetness. But then when you hit that far dry down, that incense that was kind of creeping in the mid, kind of like in a horror movie. Maybe you see it very blurry in the background in one scene and you're like, hey, what was that? What was that back there? Huh? What is that? Rewind that. What is that? That's blurry. It looked kind of like a figure or something like that. It's kind of how it is in the mid. In the base, it's like, oh, I'm dead. It's the killer, bro. The incense does that. It creeps up, it creeps up, it creeps up. And once you hit that far dry down, all of a sudden you smell the fragrance and you're like, what? Where did all this incense come from? It's balanced well, but it is noticeably incensey. Got that smokiness kind of coming through in that far dry down. It's joined by a clean, lightly fizzy kind of woodiness underneath that incense. Maybe have some light green aspects in there as well. A little residual touch from the opening carries over into the dry down as well. It doesn't lose all of that top end sparkle, is what I'm trying to say, but it definitely starts heading more towards this slightly more grown up, sexy incense dry down. A little bit deeper, a little bit more grown up than you might expect anyway, when you compare it to that initial open. So as I've already kind of talked about, Soprano Ice to me is not a direct one-to-one clone, but it is definitely a remix of the Y line in general, taking maybe bits and parts of a couple of different scents in the lineup. It's a little bit brighter, fizzier, more fruit forward, and icier, hence the name, than the other Y fragrances. And then into that dry down, you get that good amount of incense that comes up, and it sets itself apart from the other Y fragrances in that way. And in typical Dumont fashion, the performance is really solid. Off my skin, it lasts just as well as Y Le Parfum does. It's got projection just the same. Actually, off the top, this stuff is pretty freaking strong. So you don't have to worry at all in terms of performance, especially if you're wearing it as a more typical spring, summertime scent, where a lot of fragrances are a little bit less powerful than, fall and wintertime fragrances. This stuff will pack a punch. And in terms of seasonality, honestly, I think you could wear it pretty much whenever you want. Now, obviously, off the top, when you first smell this, you're gonna be like, oh, spring, summertime, right? But it does, as I said just a second ago, last. It does project, so you can easily wear it during fall, during winter, and in that dry down, when the incense becomes more prominent, that's gonna be right at home during winter. Not that it's like a heavy church incense. It is, I guess, a little bit more of a fresh incense, but it can work really well during winter. So obviously you already know my thoughts here, but Soprano Ice for 40 bucks, actually about 35 after the discount, is a banger. The performance is there, compliment factor is there. The opening is just attention grabbing to a T. Wildly attention grabbing in that opening and the mid, just like the best in the Y lineup. And honestly, that extra push of that fruit, that extra fizz, that sweetness, that works. People love it. And it has a genuine transformation as it dries down. It's not one of those ones that just goes, oh, it's the same as the opening, but a little bit smoother. And even though it does have that transformation, it doesn't lose its appeal. So it has that pull in the opening and also the dry down. This one right here absolutely can easily compete with Nitro Red. And to my own taste, I like it more than Nitro Red. But to be fair, that's also because I like the Y line in general a little bit more than the Invictus line, which is what those two fragrances are loosely based off of. So if you're a bigger fan of like Hawass, Invictus, stuff like that, then Nitro Red might still be your kind of thing over this one. So keep that in mind for sure. If you're a fan of Dumont, if you're a fan of the Y line and you want like their long lost cousin, this is a must try. This stuff is great. So Soprano Ice, 35 bucks, an absolute steal. Stuff is fantastic. Thank you guys for hanging with me. Stay safe out there. Take care of yourselves. See you tomorrow with another fragrance video. See you later.